It's day 2 of trade talks between officials from the US and China that will kick off in London later today as both sides try to resolve tensions between the world's top 2 economies. Chinese exports of rare earths, which are crucial for modern technology, as well as Beijing's access to US products, including computer chips, are high on the agenda. Last month, Washington and Beijing agreed a temporary truce over trade tariffs, but each country has since accused the other of breaching that deal. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Steve Okun, CEO of APAC Advisors. Steve, great to speak to you about this. What's your take then of the current state of play with these talks?
Well, we're watching what happens in real time when national security and trade collide. And, the White House would like to see export controls excluded from trade after inserting it into trade. The Chinese don't want to see that happen. The Chinese look at the relationship with the U.S. holistically. The U.S. is trying to segregate out what it wants to be able to negotiate China with, and that's not going to happen. Maybe we'll get a handshake here, but that's not going to be the final solution anytime soon.
Yeah, and why does the U.S. want to do that?
Well, the U.S. now views China as its key competitor globally. It views China in a way as an existential threat for what the U.S. wants to do, where the U.S. wants to be economically, where the U.S. wants to be geopolitically. And so the U.S. is now putting restrictions on China, not just on tariffs to have a level playing field, not just on having tariffs to promote foreign investment into the U.S., but to hold China back. And putting export controls that the U.S. has done onto China's domestic aviation industry, calling that national security, is giving China reason to respond on rare earths where it can really hit the United States.
And for China's part, what do they want to get out of this sort of trade deal or trade negotiations as they're going?
Well, I don't think you're going to get a deal here. I mean, the White House has said we're going to get a handshake and nothing more. What you might have is a short-term truce on export controls where the U.S. backs down on all of those export controls it has recently put on China. When it comes to aviation, when it comes to plastics, when it comes to other items such as semiconductors, then China will open back up on rare earths, which the U.S. very much needs. And this will highlight how intertwined the U.S. and China are. And it's why President Trump has come to the realization that when it comes to China, trade wars are not easy to win.
Yeah, and talk about the leverage then that China has then over the United States with this. Are they in a strong position coming into these talks?
Well, both sides are in strong positions, and both sides don't trust one another. And that's why we're at the stage we are now. The United States does not trust China to live up to its agreements going back to the South China Sea, going back to fentanyl, going back up to commitments it made as part of its WTO negotiations, going back to the Phase 1 trade agreement that the Trump administration negotiated. The Chinese don't trust the United States either. The Chinese are very wary of the United States forcing countries like Vietnam to restrict their trade with China as part of this reciprocal tariffs. So you have no trust on other side. You have both sides intertwined when it comes to trade and economics, and both trying, or in the U.S. trying to undo that. And that is not going to happen in London this week.
Yeah, and lots of other smaller nations will be watching to see where the crumbs fall, if you like. This deal not being close to being worked out. We've got about 30 seconds left. What do you think we should be looking out for then going forward?
Well, I think you will see some type of a handshake on rare earths. But you have to remember, this is not the end. This isn't even the beginning of the end. We're really got to watch what happens everywhere else on tariffs, on export controls, on third countries. All of this has got a long way to play out.
Yeah, it certainly does. A final thought then on what you think could break or make a difference?
Well, I think both sides recognizing that they need one another, both sides trying to walk back a bit of where we have gotten, and it takes both sides to recognize this, both China and the United States. Maybe we're starting to get that recognition, although I'm not holding my breath.
All right. Thanks very much, Steve, for your thoughts. Steve Okun there, CEO of APAC Advisors. We're out of time for Newsday for this a moment, but we'll be back shortly with more news. See you soon.